Oh, okay, okay, that would also be useful.
Yeah, I tried it and trying to, I don't know.
Yeah, WordPress is just
Yeah,
kind of a pain sometimes.
yeah. If you have anything better, we can definitely.
I actually don't, because I think everything I've tried is pain.
Yeah.
So it's like,
And the transfer itself would be a lot of work.
yeah.
Yeah, as someone who does not know how to do HTML and CSS, WordPress is actually kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, I technically know how to do HTML and CSS, but then also it's like, how do you go from look, I can make a box to like,
Yeah, actually
actual
designing
website.
something that
Yeah.
looks nice. Yeah, that was basically my problem with it too.
yeah, it's like, look at the box, guys.
Yeah, yeah. I even put some words in the box.
It took me like 15 tags and 100 lines of code, but now I have a box and a word in the box.
Granted, the words are in like font size 20, but you know, we'll deal with that later.
Sometimes if like a website screws up, like you'll load it without any of the CSS, and it's pretty funny. It's like all the stuff is just
Yep.
like a big like,
Yep.
like yeah. It's,
I've seen it.
unusual. What else are you gonna do?
People should know the news, take it.
Yeah,
Which one? Biothermal?
Class.
Low.
Kind of a mess, but it ends up being.
But it ends up being fine in the end, yeah. Yeah, drug delivery is the one I've taken where it's like, this feels like it's well run.
Yeah, it feels right for us.
Yeah.
Actually, a different one is pretty good too.
Which one?
Have you taken it's like biosystem analysis?
Oh, I think I'm gonna be taking that next semester, actually. I think so.
You're probably taking actual. Like,
Computational biology.
that one I think is 167.
Yeah, that's the one.
That one's even more. This one's
Okay.
like less. It's just a not lab.
Okay,
But it's 143. It's really good.
interesting. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that one, actually. Principles of medical
I
imaging?
think so.
What's what number?
Let me actually figure that out. 131.
Oh,
Did you use it? It's Tufts now.
Yeah, I did.
not that I remember.
Have you worked in the Tufts sites platform yet? You might need to make an account for your Tufts email.
I thought I did, but hold on. How do you get plus this?
It's just site stuff.
Wait, I'm like 100%. Yeah, I loaded it. Huh? Excuse me. It might be just like. That's the number email.
That would probably still work.
Yeah, it should.
Welcome back, Alex.
Okay. So I'll take my spot.
Yeah, by all means, you have your pick of chair.
I'll take the middle.
And thank you very much for being with us tonight. I'm Miles, so I was the one you were
Emailing. Nice to meet you.
hearing from over
Alex
email.
Metropolis, Dr. Metropolis, whatever you want to call him.
And then I believe Jishan, and I don't know who the third person is.
Joanna, right?
Joanne, yeah.
Is she gonna come in person?
No, I think she's over Zoom, and then we have 5 others as well in
Okay.
total. I think 4 of them are over Zoom, and 1 more is in person, but I don't know which the one is.
Okay.
So we'll find out.
Yeah.
Actual identifier, because it's probably been.
Hey, Jed.
For me. So I don't know. I
Hey Eve, do you mind going down to the main lobby and making sure people can actually get in?
Sure, yeah.
Although actually, no, it's fine. They have my phone
No,
number,
people
so.
will be able to get in, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, 'cause-
We're just there for a few minutes, look like everybody was getting in.
okay, no,
Unless it changed at 8 o'clock.
I don't think it does.
Yeah.
The one thing is like, there are 6 doors in the front of the building and like 5 of them are locked,
Yeah.
but 1 of them's unlocked, so. Oh, there's hello, Gary, can you hear me?
I don't need.
I can almost see you. Hello.
I have two majors, so any class is not for any major, for my second major. Like, I don't.
Hello. I just want to check to make sure. Can the people on Zoom hear me? There might be too much chatter. Okay, yeah. Gary says he can hear me. John, I see a thumbs up from you too. It's great to see you both. We're just waiting for the other panelists to join us over Zoom or in person, and then we will get started.
Yes, John Clute, I forgot about John.
Yeah. Then I think there's also Michaela.
Yep,
Joanna.
Michaela, yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna check out.
Yep, there's Joanna jumping in. Sounds good.
There he is.
Hey.
Hey.
Probably started the virus.
See, how you doing? When someone's like, he's gonna go, I'm like, hey, you should go to China though. China.
Hong Kong, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm not now.
Yeah, Sean Tyson?
Yeah.
Miles.
Miles, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for putting this together.
Of course. Hey, Joanna.
Hey guys, how are you?
Doing well. It's good to see you.
Here, wait, I can't tell who's
I was there for like
who is speaking. Wait.
I am. I'm currently off to the side. Hi, here I am.
Oh, there you are.
Unfortunately, there's not really a great way of arranging the camera so you can see everyone at once. So I figured the panelists are probably going to be more important than me. As long as you can hear me, though, we're good.
Are we going on the
I can hear you really well.
I'm actually just going to try to turn the volume up a little bit on the Zoom.
Wasn't he in like?
Could one of you actually speak now? I just want to make sure we have a good volume level.
Can you hear us?
Yes, yes, good. Yeah, should be all good once the chatter settles down a little when we get going. We're just waiting for the last couple of panelists to arrive. Then we will get going. So just should just be a couple minutes.
So I started and then COVID hit. Started job in COVID. I'm like,
I literally just like pull out my phone, like gave my link there.
exactly. I'm all back. I like the starts.
Yeah, I have like 1,000.
Exactly, yeah.
But I don't know why. I feel bad. It's like they printed 1,000 of them.
Yeah. What are you doing now?
No, so I was at I was at a strategy consulting firm.
Right.
Looks all good down there?
Okay,
Sounds good.
so up there, and now it looks like a boutique.
Okay. Yeah, I think we should have, we're expecting one more person in person.
A little bit the same, a little bit
But,
different. We do a lot of
who
like
is it?
capital raises
John?
and, like,
Just,
transactions
John's,
for small,
John's on
like,
Zoom.
context.
This
It's a
was
lot of
like
like,
checking
it's a
a
lot of
little
just
while
like
ago. We figured out
figuring out what makes
it
it
would be
new
in person
technology
over
really
versus
cool,
over
and
Zoom.
then like messaging us investors and getting people excited about new stuff. And
One more.
it's a lot
I
of
think
fun.
it's actually,
Just it's fun. It does 10 class major, so
Lots to learn.
yeah.
But also a lot of work.
like you don't have to.
I think it
Well,
was
you can
Sam
like a lot
Kessel
of
that was going to be in
like, I
person
haven't done
otherwise.
any banking, so it's
Yeah.
like, I have to like take exams and like just learn some of the basics.
Yeah, I figured we'll get started at 5.
That's most,
It was weird studying for exams again.
that's why I have a second major.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
Because I was like, I'm gonna take one
Studying,
semester
like-
anyway, so then it's 2 more.
yeah, nothing they're gonna teach. This song still, I don't think, like,
Yeah.
And like, the ideas that people get to are so good. Take the next step, take the next 3 steps, please.
Seems like a pretty cool class.
Oh, his reaction. Surprise. Hey, Sam. Can you hear me? Hello.
Like Joanna's up there. I don't actually know. Oh, I know John.
Seeing no signs of confirmation.
I don't know. I think the other one is- Oh, it's way nicer than the Anderson that I remember.
I think so. It's just right now, I think the chatter makes it a little hard to hear on Zoom. There what? Oh, yeah, good idea. All right, so it is 8:05. I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. So hello, everyone. To our panelists, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I just want to do a quick audio check to make sure we're all good on that end. First of all, can the people on Zoom hear me? Especially the panelists. Sam, can you hear me? Okay, I think Sam might be having some audio difficulties. So I'm gonna go ahead and message him real quick. Headphones, that'll probably help. Yeah, I mean, like, on the one hand, it's so convenient. On the other hand, at this point,
Now I can hear you.
oh, wonderful, wonderful. And we hear you too. So that answers my next question. And actually, Alex and Nishant, if you guys could also just speak real quick to make sure that the people on Zoom can hear you, that'd be great.
Hey, John. Hey, Sam. Hey, Joanna.
Hi, everyone.
I see smiles, so I'm assuming that worked. All right, so in that case, welcome everyone to the BMES Alumni Panel, and thank you very much again to our panelists for joining us. To start out, I think it'd be a good idea if you all just introduce yourselves real quick. Just, name when you were at Tufts and the kinds of things you do now. So we can go in any order here, but the floor is yours.
Sure, I'll start. My name is Nishant. I graduated from Tufts with my PhD in 2018. I then left to go work at a strategy consulting firm called Health Advances, and then most recently just joined a investment bank focused on healthcare called Locus Law.
I'm Alex Antropoulos. I graduated my undergrad in 2010, and then with my PhD in 2015. I first left, and I went to be a professor at West Point for 3 years. And then I started with a government contracting, and now I'm at Miller Four Sigma as product manager. What's the name?
John, you go first. I saw you come off mute.
John Klug, I'm a double jumbo, graduated undergrad in 2005 and with my PhD from the BME department in 2010. And I work for a startup company in Cambridge, Massachusetts called Vaxis Technologies, which licenses technology from Tufts. So I'm still, by extension, like part of the Tufts universe. So excited to be a part of this panel. Thanks for inviting me.
It's good to have you here.
And I'm Joanna Zilis. I am also a double jumbo. I graduated from the Arts and Science and Engineering School, so double major in Spanish and biomedical engineering. I think it was the first year that BME was offered as a double major in 2007, and then PhD in 2013. I worked for a small company in Boston, and then it got bought by a big company in New Jersey, but I still stayed in Boston. And now I'm working for another startup. It's called Tissium, and we are a biomaterials company that's trying to commercialize a few different products for surgical adhesives.
Hey, I'm Gary. I graduated from Tufts in 2017 with a MSBS. Afterwards, I worked at 2 startups. One was around modifying surfaces of catheters to make it like super slippery. And then the other one was to make synthetic cartilage that we would replace hips with. It's essentially a polymer that's also like really slippery. And then afterwards, I decided to get a PhD. I'm at Berkeley. I'm working with Professor Doudna and learning a whole new field, and excited to jump back into the entrepreneurial route afterwards. Yeah.
And then Sam, you're up.
Yeah, I would say Gary's saving the world with CRISPR over there.
I was going to
so-
say, I don't know, we'll have to hear more about that.
Yeah, Gary and I played in jazz band together, so we know each other. Yeah, so my name's Sam. I graduated in 2015, and then I went straight to medical school and also got my dual MBA with that as well. I did 1 year of internship in internal medicine, so I was frontlines COVID last year, and then I decided to make a career pivot, and now I'm at LEK Consulting. I'm working in their biotech practice.
Very cool. Well, thanks again for all of you for joining us. One of the things I actually thought was really cool about this panel in particular, as I was sort of talking to all of you, and especially when you sent me all your little bios, you really all do represent the breadth of the BME field very well. I mean, we've got startup people, we've got somebody in a PhD, we've got people in the more devices or consulting side of things. So one of the things I wanted to ask was if you could speak a bit about sort of how you ended up in the place that you are today. Like, what is it about the field that you're in now that's inspired you to work on it? Anyone can start out, but at the same time, like, don't feel like you have to answer every question. It's just if you really have something you want to say, then by all means, and then feel free to start a conversation amongst yourselves as well.
Sure, I can start again. Yeah, so I guess my path, I did my PhD with Sergio Fantini, as hopefully you guys know, because he's an amazing professor. And I basically, towards the end of it, realized that I'm not terrific at coming up with new ideas or the science side of things. And I also realized that there's a gap from the scientist perspective in actually commercializing some technologies that are really innovative. And the challenge is, most of the time when something is really cutting edge, there actually is no market for it because people can't understand why it's cutting edge. And so to try to build that business case and learn some of the commercialization techniques and strategies, I've moved over to strategy consulting side. And I've learned a ton from that. And then from there, sort of the next step is how you get money. Because once you have a commercial strategy, you got to figure out how to convince someone that your strategy is good and get capital to actually build out a technology. And so now I'm in investment banking, where a lot of my job is working with companies like what some of the people on this panel are doing, and helping them figure out how can they raise capital from investors, how can they license technologies to bigger companies that can help commercialize them, things like that. So it's been really fun to learn, and frankly, it's been a great career choice for me because I don't think I would have cut it out in science like some of the other people on this panel.
That goes to show, though, how degree of BME can take you a lot of different directions. How about you, Alex?
I'll just go, yeah. So my career path, I started here. I was always into biomaterials, so I started doing research with David and Theo in like 2008 or something like that, and I stayed with Theo and graduated with him with a PhD in nanostructured biomaterials. And so he wanted me to go the academic route or stay within that field. So I went to West Point at the military academy, and I was, in the math department, in the chemistry and life science department there. They wanted to start a biomedical engineering program pretty much there. So I was kind of the biomaterialist on some of their programs. It was a different type of environment, a different type of academic environment. I enjoyed the teaching. I loved working with the students. I loved the environment. It was a really, really great place to be. But West Point was kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I wanted to be closer to a big city. And I always wanted to be on the business side of research. So even though I enjoyed the teaching and, publishing was fun, trying to get grant money, but I didn't see that for the rest of my life. We look 20 years down the road, I was just like, I don't want to wake up and continue to write grants all the time. Even though it's fun when you win. It's really not fun when you lose. And so like I said, I kind of made that transition to the business side of things. Before I got my PhD, I always said I wanted to be on the business side of research, whatever that meant. So it was always fun in the position I am now. So I'm working with a product that's like 40 years old. So I work at Millipore Sigma. I work with a Durapore membranes and cartridges. So it's been this product that's used extensively in pharmaceutical companies, with the COVID vaccine and everything like that. Other pharmaceuticals with Roche and Biogen and everything like that. So it was fun to kind of see how a product, how the full product life cycle is, because when you're doing research, you are just developing the product and trying to do all those things that Sean was just saying. So now on the other side of it, it's very, very stable environment. So that's always fun.
How about the
I can-
Go ahead, Sam.
I can give this a whirl. My answer is basically a non-answer because when I was at Tufts, I was 100% sure I was going to be a physician. And I mean, I am now, but I was 100% sure I'd be practicing medicine for the rest of my life. I was 100% sure of it. I was like, I'm going to do biomedical engineering, be a physician or a surgeon or something that like invents devices or like, was an academic physician. It was basically the plan. I had the plan. It was down. At Tufts, I knew exactly where I was going to be at age 45, right? And so part of my path was kind of going down this route and realizing, oh, like there's some things about this that I like, there's things about this that I don't like, but getting exposure to some people who were highly influential. And one of those was Jack Derby, actually at Tufts, who was a marketing professor. And that kind of sparked my interest in business towards the end while I was on my medical school interviews. And I go through medical school and I did enjoy it a lot. I got to do some really interesting research and did get to apply some of my biomedical engineering skill set. But towards the end of the 5-year program and the MBA part, I got involved with a lot of other alums have been involved with, which is entrepreneurship. And I went to the Wharton Healthcare Business Conference. I recommend everyone goes to that because it's really interesting if you have any interest in business and medicine. And I met some amazing people who started companies for a living, and they do something relatively similar with how Moderna was started. Moderna was started out of Flagship Pioneering, which is a venture capital firm. So that kind of sparked my interest in biotech and venture capital broadly. I still was hesitant though, so I did start my residency program, but after a year of COVID, I realized this is not the thing for me anymore. It's time to make the switch. This is what I'm really passionate about, and it's just been a really exciting path for me. When I was at Tufts, I really wanted to go internationally. Never got that opportunity. And now my career is going to allow me to work internationally, which I'm very excited about. So, if you have a plan, by all means, go for it, but be open to the opportunities along the way.
Yeah, very cool again to hear how plans can change over time as you get new experiences.
I think just to underline or underscore some things Sam said too, it sometimes is the people that you come across that you think are it's just a passing seminar or just a professor, just a person you meet for 10 minutes that changed the entire path of your career. So my first job came from somebody who is lecturing as an industry visiting scholar, someone who's invited by David, to give a lecture on surgical reconstruction of skin injuries. And so that person ended up being my first boss, and just from a 5-minute conversation after his lecture. So giving those, I don't want to call them ancillary because they can be pretty pivotal, but those paying attention to interactions and encounters that you have that might be unexpected, or at times that you're not targeting to network or do something, can be really instrumental in helping you find your path.
John or Gary, either you want to chime in?
I can just again circle back to the theme about sort of pivots. I did a traditional PhD training, did a postdoc for a couple of years, and I was also pretty determined to do a traditional faculty position search, and I became kind of disenfranchised with the whole system, in professorships and applying for grants, and also just I felt like the environment was a little bit or it's just typically like hierarchical in the sense that you have sort of a PI and then other folks like underneath that position, versus what I've experienced in the startup environment is very different, very integrated, very team oriented. I think in particular what was inspiring about being in the startup environment is just sort of taking an idea like you would in an academic environment and seeing it grow over time, and the scales you can reach in a corporate setting could even exceed the size and amount of financial support and potential societal impact than than many ideas that get spun out of labs. So I was, very inspired by that. And I think just to echo, what Joanna just said about the people you meet is, when you find that right group that really resonates with you, and they become your colleagues for a number of years, it's very inspiring to continue to work on, to pull with each other and to grow something together. So I've loved the experience so far. One day it will end and I will be very sad about that. But right now I'm sort of very much enjoying the startup, culture and life. So.
And I don't know if anyone wants to speak to what unites them with their colleagues, but usually, so for me, my job right now is it's commercial focused. So I translate our ideas and technologies from the product development team into business ideas. And so I'm sort of the bridge between what our commercial business will be and what our product development team comes up with. But the one thing that I get to do is I get to work with surgeons and patients directly to understand their needs. So that's what unites me to my colleagues. And from the first, even from my PhD, when I had some interactions with surgeons, that's what I gravitated to. And looking back at my career, I can see all of that, all those touch points and those uniting points. But when you're in it and you're starting to do it, it's difficult to see it, but it's important to stay in touch with what you really enjoy, like Sam said before. It's hard, but it's important.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just, I think, this is what so many people have said before. It's just like, I guess during undergrad and like, it's really hard to see like the importance of people that you work with, like the relationships and like how you work well together. When like a team works well together versus a team that's like kind of competitive, it's like it's night and day. The progress is like 0 and 100. Like it's that's what kind of, I would say, like is like something to look out for next steps. Like I remember talking to this, out of undergrad, I was just cold emailing like random like people essentially. And this one guy at Columbia, he was like a translational director. He was just like, look, Gary, like it doesn't matter like what type of position you go for next. Like what matters at the core are the people and the purpose. And as long as like those two things are met, like those are the most important things. But in terms of route, like my family was always like very entrepreneurial, started their own company, like very big. And for me, like I kind of chased the dream that was like maybe childish or too ambitious, or like wanting to make something that was in a hospital that I'll like see in a hospital one day. And like to me, the only way to see that come through and learn how to do that is like to work at a startup and just like see how it works, and then eventually be able to like build one on my own. And I guess through joining startups, what I learned was that it was hard to like I wasn't the one that was like creating the ideas, guiding the direction. I was just kind of like the hands making it. And I think a PhD allows me to really like develop the skills of like guiding a certain direction and like understanding and like being really into the literature, like wanting to read it, like because you like really enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to hear how much you all sort of have learned in your time since Tufts. I want to go back to one of the things you all mentioned, or a few of you mentioned, about sort of wishing you'd been able to see the personal touch points at the time that they were happening. I sort of wanted to build on that and ask, what's something that you wish you had known while you were still at Tufts or in undergrad that you learned later but would like to share now?
Okay, Miles, before we do that,
Yeah.
can we ask this group a couple questions?
Oh, sure.
Just to get a feel for who we're talking to.
Sure.
How many of you guys are actively looking for a job or know what you're doing? Okay, so most of you guys, how many of you guys are junior or senior?
How many are raising their hands?
Oh, sorry.
And I'd say
For those of
about,
us not in the room.
yeah,
Sorry, less than half.
about
Yeah.
20-ish% for the first question, 40-ish% for the second.
How many want to go to grad school or something like that or in the future? Okay.
That was
Yeah, heavy
another
grad school
50-ish
audience.
percent.
Heavy grad school.
Yeah.
How many people are in the room? Just
Yeah.
Can we get a camera?
No, this is one of the things that just wouldn't.
12 to
work.
13.
Yeah, looks like I'd say 80-ish.
okay.
It's kind of
Sorry.
Yeah, rotate the
You want me to take it?
the laptop.
Yeah, they don't need to see.
They don't need to see
Oh,
us.
they need to see it. Come on.
What's up, party people?
Hey.
It'll do.
Listen, like, we can answer that question, but frankly, I'm kind of curious, what do you guys want to hear from us? Like, we'll answer whatever question you want us to hear, answer.
Yep.
but it's to help you guys, so.
I kind of have a question, kind of branching off what Matt was saying. My name is Eve. I'm one of the co-presidents of the Student Society.
Can't really hear you. Can you speak up a little louder? I'm
Someone
sorry.
maybe repeat
Or
the-
closer to the mic.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Mhm.
Okay, better. So we kind of just shed light on how you start from the bottom up to where you are right now, and like reflecting on your basic education, whether in college or elsewhere. Like, how did the experience help you? Especially you like, for example, Nishan, you mentioned that you're now on the like investment banking in life sciences side, and like personally, I don't know many classes that focus on that in undergrad. And Alex mentioned that you're one of the presidents of the BMES Society. And like, how did experience in and outside classroom help you get to where you are right now? Like back to the basics.
Yeah.
So,
You don't let your education, don't let your classes get in the way of your education type attitude. I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, frankly, there's classes that prepared me for what I do now. There's a professor at Tufts, Frank Alpasacchi, that runs an internal financial accounting and consulting class, and that's honestly what set me on my path to where I am now. And, as many of the people have already mentioned, it's little interactions like that that usually shape or formative experiences or light a spark in your interest. So I would just encourage you to keep an open mind, and if you see something you like, really chase after it.
Exactly. And don't be ashamed to do anything. So I think kind of tying on what everyone's saying, it's like, so networking is a big thing. We all keep talking about people's a big thing. Don't underestimate that. Don't think, just like you're smart. Oh, you're great. You're going to Tufts. It's got a good name and like that. That's going to get you far. So it's these networking, making those connections, meeting with those people. It could be a professor. It could be, at some event you go to.
Like an alumni panel.
Like an alumni panel or something like that, yeah. But that's probably more than 50% sometimes of the relationships,
Yeah.
jobs.
Yeah, and don't underestimate how much regular things connect you to people. When I was at Tufts, I went straight into my PhD, and I did that because my first summer that I was second summer I was at Tufts, I needed to find an advisor. And what I did was I went into the book of faculty. I don't know if you guys have actual physical books anymore, but maybe I'm dating myself. And
It's a website.
it's online maybe,
Yeah.
but I went in, and my family's Greek. So I'm first generation American, and I looked for every Greek last name I could find, like Popoulos, whatever. And then I actually looked for the women. I thought there's a Greek woman here. She's going to be my mentor. I'm going to find her. And there was two, Stephanopoulos and Georgia Kuti, in chemical engineering and biomedical engineering. And I went to meet with them, and I bonded immediately with Irene. She ended up being my PhD advisor. It was 3 years later. I stayed every summer and did research with her. We just had a lot in common, and we were passionate about the same things, not because we're both Greek, but probably because we found something that we built on, from something small to something big. So you really can use, don't try to make superficial relationships with people. Try to find real ones that you can use, and you can build yourself and develop yourself, and don't stress about it, because it'll come naturally.
Yeah, the other thing I'll mention on that last point that John mentioned is, I know a lot of people will probably tell you you're young and you have time, but honestly, don't be afraid to cut bait on something you feel like isn't working. Like, it's fine. Like, if you spend a year, 2 years, and you feel like it's not the right fit for you, cut it loose and start something new that you're excited about. Because at the end of the day, like, if that's gonna be your career, and you're gonna do it for 50 years, you better damn well like it.
Exactly. And again, going on with that, don't be afraid that what you did was a waste of time. You can take all those experiences, good or bad, and run with it to your next career or your next move or your next pivot, like all of us. So like when I was at West Point, I had some amazing experiences and then I had some really, really terrible experiences. I had like a horrible boss. And I took that because I know now what makes a good boss and what makes a bad boss. So as I'm moving up in my management experience and my leadership experience, I know how to treat others, my team, differently. So it wasn't a waste of time at all.
To build off of what the gentlemen are saying in the room, I'm sorry, I don't know y'all's names because they're not like popping up on my Zoom screen, but those are really great points. I think the bottom line of what they're saying, like it's okay to try stuff, like that's the really important lesson I wish I knew in college, which is try as many things as you can. And whether you're exposing yourself by having a conversation with someone. So like, for example, you're thinking about consulting, you talk to me, that's fine, or medicine, because I've also done that. Like talk to someone who's done some of these things, but also try to get some exposure yourself. So if some of you are pre-med, like go into the hospital and try that, see if you like it. If you don't like it, that's a sign. If you're interested in the business world, trying to get an internship. That was one thing I wish I did in college, which I was not able to attain one, but certainly working on getting an internship. That's another data point where you can try something and see whether or not you like it, or if there's certain things that you're interested in. One of the other things that I wish I did, besides trying more things along the way, was reaching out to more people. You will be shocked about who will respond to your messages on LinkedIn. If you say you're a student, you read a little bit about them and you want to learn about their career path. That little bit makes a huge difference. And lots of people are really excited to talk about themselves and are happy to share that with you. So I've gotten to have a sit-down conversation with the guy who ran Medicare and Medicaid because I did those kinds of things. I randomly reached out to a guy on LinkedIn. He's like, yeah, that was my roommate. I smoked weed with him. So that's why I was able to make that connection. So you'd be shocked at who you'll be able to find if you reach out on LinkedIn, or if you just reach out to the Tufts network. I think there's an alumni service, but something like that. Like a lot of these people just have connections to other people. And one of the best questions you can ask in a networking conversation is there someone else you'd recommend that I talk to? Because you can meet some great people that way.
Yeah, I remember when I was reaching out to people, I had like a 80% hit rate. So I was so surprised that was actually the case. Yeah, and one thing I'll say, just continuing off what Joanna said about like being like honest and open and like not really being superficial. Like I think a lot of the times being superficial stems from a desire to like make yourself seem like you want the other person to see like how great you are, and so you like curate that image, and oftentimes that makes you seem like one-dimensional. It makes you seem like superficial, and I think the way to kind of overcome that is just like being brutally honest about like who you are, about what you think, and like people really engage with that. They can tell when you're like putting yourself out there, and they like respond really well to that. And that's kind of the basis of forming deep connections, is like being completely open about yourself.
Other questions you guys have?
Yeah, it looks like we have one from the Zoom actually. So Jolene asks, when would you recommend getting involved in research? The process seems very daunting and I want to be sure that I get hands-on research experience while at Tufts, but I'm not sure how and when to start.
As soon as possible. You want to do it? Just go knock on professors' doors. Seriously, just go do it. Because what year are you? You're a sophomore or something like that? Just go do it. I started at the end of my sophomore year. I probably should have started at the end of my freshman year because I was afraid. And I was afraid of some things. So when I was an undergrad, I was just like, my research is terrible. I'm just a kind of the hands that do the project. But by the end of it, my junior, senior year, I probably could have been able to go to some conferences or something like that. My research was, well, maybe not, but when I started going to conferences in grad school, I realized there are undergraduate opportunities there. There are other things that are there that I missed out on as an undergrad. So that's what I recommend.
Tufts is the best in the summer.
What?
But I love Boston and Tufts in the summer. I stay since I came to college. I stayed every single summer here, so through undergrad and grad school, and it's quiet, but there's still fun stuff going on. You get to focus, you get to make your own schedule. You kind of you take your territory. It's a great place to be.
What I'll say about research is it's, again, all about the people. It's so the mentor that you find is so important. It is the most important thing, because at the end of the day, you're learning, you're learning from them. And it might not be the PI that you're spending a lot of time with, but the person, the PhD student or the postdoc that you're working under, they're the ones that you want to have a good connection with, in terms of you see them and you're like, hey, what's up? How are you? You're actually curious. That's that mentor is really important. And when you're looking for research things, it might not even be the project that is the most important thing. I would say the person you're working with, being willing to really hold your hand, guide you, kind of yeah.
I agree with Gary.
That person is, yeah.
I agree with you, Gary. Yeah. So it's, they're going to teach you more than just the research as well. So take that into account. I mean, if that's your style, and if that's their style, it really has to mesh. So you'll find that. So I'll kind of just touch upon that a little more. But as an undergrad, you're really just starting on a research, you just get in there, and who was it, Sam? I think you said it. Just try it. If you don't like it, maybe that's the research, maybe it's the advisor, maybe it's just research in general. Maybe you just don't like. So just, especially when you're young, just try it. There's no shame there.
Also, just be humble. You're not going to go in there and write the next paper in your 2-month research project over the summer. Frankly, it's not going to happen. So if you have to watch some class and do some silly experiments, that's all a good experience. That's how we all started before we did our PhD, and doing that and being in the environment is how you get excited about it. So take it for what it's worth, and try to enjoy the experience and learn as much as you can.
Now help you later on, because then you'll have that grunt work experience. So if you do go into research, do something else, you can be like, yeah, I know how to do it, and you'll be the expert. You'll be able to move up much faster. And you'll see that in all walks of life. There is a pecking order, unfortunately. It does come with time, it does come with experience. So sometimes when you pivot with a job, you either go lateral or some other direction that may not be where you want, but it's all part of the process.
Yeah, really good points. And yeah, by all means, at this point, it's open to questions from anyone who has one.
Hi, I'm Alexa. I'm a senior, and I'm just starting the sort of job search. And you guys are talking so much about kind of the team and the people that you're going to be working with to make the experience. I was just wondering if you have any tips for how to gauge that, how to in your quick interviews and a LinkedIn post. It's kind of hard to see what a company is actually like, especially I'm looking for a smaller size company where the team even matters not much more. So yeah, I was wondering if you have any tips on that.
I would say, you can glean a lot from the interview process, for sure. So, typically there's multiple people that get involved, even at an entry level position, to, first screen and then some sort of in-person or Zoom interview. And I think you just ask those people and try to get data on that. So let's say you have 3 people in the interview panel. Everyone, you just ask a series of questions around how they would describe, the culture of the company, or even more detailed questions like, how do they enjoy the company of their peers? And I think you can be honest in those settings, and anybody that's in the interviewer seat is going to be encouraged by an interviewee that is asking questions about the company, and is really digging in and seeming invested in that. So it will not at all come across as being invasive or
you can ask about things again beyond the company that John was just kind of saying, be like, what do you guys do after work? Do you guys all get together? Do you get drinks? Do you go, play sports? Those types of things you can ask. And that again is that next level that you're not just interested in the research and like interest you're going to do. It's you're interested in the culture of the company.
Yeah, and one other aspect I think is like even getting your foot in the door and getting your resume seen, can be really difficult because it's a really we're in an interesting moment in the job market. There's like it's really hot market, meaning it's there are a lot of open positions, especially in biotech right now, which is great, but it's still competitive. And in that context, I think I would recommend starting with LinkedIn or anybody in your personal network to make an introduction. And obviously, if that person has worked in that company, you have a good sense of like the culture because they spent some time there and they can usually give you a good, firsthand account of how things went. But most of the best employees we've had have not come in through a recruiter or, like a Indeed. It's been by some personal referral. And so and I think that's pretty common in the industry. So I think that carries a lot of weight when somebody can introduce you to the company and that person's it will provide some really good insight about the culture.
There's some pointed questions you can ask if you're at a loss there though. A couple of the ones that I always ask is, what is your retention rate? Anyone who is a good HR person will know how long the average person stays at the company. If they don't know that answer, I would run. Another good one is how much face time do analysts, so like entry-level people, get with the CEO or the senior management if it's a smaller company. Another one that's like, again, how much time are we going to get from upper management in terms of training? And also that leads to the next question, which is what does a training program look like? All those things are good ways to gauge of like, how are they treating new hires? How much do they want people at the company that they're hiring to stay at the company? And how much do they care about the people that they work with? So if you don't get good answers, if you don't get answers that you like for those questions, like that's probably a good idea of like if it's going to be a good fit for you. And there's honestly not a wrong answer there, right? Like some companies it's going to be, hey, like CEO, it's big companies, you're not going to talk to the CEO, but there's a lot of like hands-on work with your manager.
Yeah, I don't talk to the CEO at Melaport. We're 13,000 people in the United States. Don't talk to them.
Yeah, so it's just like I talk to my CEO every day.
It's okay to ask about things that you really that will affect your life, but that you might be nervous to ask about, especially if you're going for smaller mid-level companies, and if you're thinking about starting a family, asking about parental leave, like that's okay. Don't be afraid to ask questions that you think might deter them. For example, after I left a larger company, I went to work for a small company called in the orthopedic space, and I found out I was pregnant like as I was accepting the job, and I didn't even think about asking about parental leave before I found that out, because we weren't planning our family, but we had a great surprise, and I didn't ask about their policy, and I regretted that when I went into that job and I was had a baby after 9 months. That was really hard because they weren't supportive of what for me for that process. So don't be afraid to ask hard questions in your interview process, because it could really affect things that are important to you, just because you're afraid that they'll say, oh no, this person might not be right because they want this, if you want to ask for it.
I remember after when I was like thinking about I interviewed for like a couple places, got 2 offers, and they were like really excellent, top of the line offers, and I was like really struggling, like going through like pros and cons lists, like Venn diagrams, whatever. And I was just like, I was like talking to Theo, like, and I think the most surprising thing he told me was that, like, he was like, Gary, like, just follow your gut. like, and I don't know, like, I was so surprised. I was like, aren't you like scientists, like data fact driven? And it was just like, yeah, Gary, like follow your gut, like it's not going to lead you wrong. And like in terms of like that career choice, like I've like my gut led me to the right place, and I don't think it's foolproof, and you need definitely the data, but I think once you collect all that data and like you're at that like moment point, like your gut also has a an important weight to it.
I think that deals with a little bit of passion too, right? It's like your gut may have that feeling. So it's just like, that's what you want to do. And that will drive you to do, more, enjoy it more in slightly different ways. So. You
I mean,
know,
I have a hard time even saying that.
What?
Trust your gut.
What? What?
Yeah,
Numbers can only get you 90% of the way sometimes, right? So that extra 10%, it's got to be you, right?
But yeah,
Don't be afraid of that.
And it's also important to realize that the big highlight, like high level culture at a company is really important to align yourself with. But if you're at a company, it's very likely, and I don't know if the panel members would agree with me, you're going to have a challenge. And there's always going to be a challenge with a department, a person, a structure. And so if you do get a job and in your first 6 months, you're thinking, why did I do this? This is terrible. I can't get over this. It's, I think I've felt that way at almost every place I've been at one point or another, that, this is not for me. And sometimes you have to give that place a chance and remember the things that you value, because if you hop to different places in the first few years of your career, you'll start to learn like the grass is always greener on the other side. So every place has its positives, but it also has a little bit of negative that you have to manage through.
Yeah, because sometimes the grass isn't greener on the other side.
Usually it's not.
yeah.
You may think it is initially,
Yeah.
but remember they're also trying to attract you. They want you to like it sometimes.
Especially during your lows. Yeah.
What?
The grass is greener, especially during your lows.
Yeah. If you're looking for a new job, they will attract you those ways. So.
Any other questions? These are good.
Yeah, these are good. Yeah. 15 minutes.
I've got more if need be.
So there's more on the screen, right?
No, that was Sam responding to the person who asked through Zoom. Well, I mean, sort of along the lines of what Joanne was saying about challenges. What are some of the ones that you've all encountered during your careers, and how do you say you overcame them?
COVID.
Yeah, that's been a challenge.
Yeah, COVID, that was a new way of working. I used to love going into the office every single day, so not being able to do that was just very weird. But now in my position, I'm not in a lab environment, which is great. So now I can work anywhere else. So that's one thing that affects everyone. One thing for me, I kind of mentioned it, I had a terrible boss. I'll say he tried to ruin my career, actually. So just like we knocked heads. And so I had to deal with things that I probably shouldn't have had to at such an early age. But it's bettered me for the long term. And I had a support network at my company that trusted me compared with this other individual. This other individual, he left where he was or at the company. And so it was thankfully that the other relationships that I had made, they were like, yes, we trust you. We're going to, all your information, and I had, data to back it up, made sense. But yeah, some of the struggles I had was, again, bad boss, but taking from the positive side, I now know what a bad boss is. I know how to be a better manager because
I will say, and COVID really showed me this, is there's a double-edged sword to really like what you do. And in COVID, when I was working from home, I really loved my job before, and I was basically working like 100 hours a week. So I'd wake up at 5 a.m., get to my desk, didn't have to drive anywhere, would hop on, get like 4 hours of work done, would have meetings with my team from 9 to 5, and then would take a break for lunch and then work from 7 to midnight. That was my day for like a good 6 months of COVID because I had nothing better to do. Not that I didn't have anything better to do, but like I love my job. The projects we were working on were interesting. Everything we were doing seemed really important. It's just important to remember that, the work's always going to be there. It's, your job's always going to be there. No one's going to fire you if you're doing good work. And you can take a break, push back, push timelines off. Like everything keeps moving, nothing revolves around you. And that was a big lesson for me in this last year. And part of the reason why I switched jobs to sort of take a step back and learn how to manage from afar and do things a bit slower and leave time to come here and attend panels like this and talk to you guys and hopefully impart some of the lessons I've learned.
Max, do you have a question?
Yes. I don't know if the camera turned on. Okay, it is on.
That's
First,
good.
I'd like to thank all the panelists for coming. It's really like awesome seeing people like along a different stage of like I guess like the whole life, the life cycle of someone who's interested in this stuff. And I wanted to ask, like, what do you guys find most fulfilling in your positions as far as like the more like philosophical or like psychological side of like following this career path? Like, what is it that you feel like is like the most like at the core important for what you do?
Helping people.
Yeah, as cliche as that sounds, helping people. So my company Millipore, right? So I know that the product that I work on has direct contact with the Pfizer vaccine. So can't get any closer than that.
I mean, like, you can help people in a lot of different ways. So like, don't be open-minded about the different ways you can help people and how fulfilling that can be. My company, yeah, this is public, so I can tell you that. We helped a founder who basically he was a Harvard professor who started this company. He was paying for it with his 401k, so his retirement and his life savings. He was paying his employees to try to keep this company afloat. And he didn't want to sell it out to a private equity firm or a venture capital firm because they would just take away all of his ownership and say, here's a couple $1 million for your technology, but we're going to replace you as CEO, and then we'll build the company up to be this $1 billion corporation. And so we helped him craft a story and build a strategy around this technology. And we were actually just doing the math around this, allowed him to keep enough equity in his company that if he were to IPO in the next year and a half, which is likely, he probably would be worth over $100 million. And you know, for someone who's been funding a passion project of his through his professorship and really trying to like fund his company through his life saving and taking a risk on himself, like that was a big deal for him. And the money is whatever, but it was really cool to see him so excited about it and him so happy about working with us. So at the end of the day, you can help people in many different ways.
Yeah, the being an engineer is really powerful in today's workplace and society. I think all of the skills that you all will learn or are learning now, or that we all have learned in structuring problems, answering, finding information, and communicating the information. It's I think it's a skill that is not common when you get out into industry and in the workplace. We've built our brains this way, and you can help your team and your company with business problems, and you can help translate ideas into real things that help patients and help people be more healthy, live better lives, have better quality of life. So if you have the power to do that with the education that you guys are investing in. So I think for me, that's what that one of the biggest challenges for me was getting out of a research state where I was in a lab and doing something and exploring primary ideas and letting that go, and actually using the structure and framework and the understanding of that to help on the next path. And so you get that same satisfaction though at every single stage of your efforts. So there's a lot of like low-hanging fruit for satisfaction in terms of being an engineer, I think.
Yeah, well, I think we have time for one more question. So
guys, thank you for spending your time being here with us. I have a quick question. So some of you guys already touched on this, but I see and actually was surprised that most of y'all finished after graduate school, master's and PhD. And this is something relevant to the fact that a lot of people worry before that biomedical, like undergrad degree. And so I just.
Can you repeat?
He says you all have a graduate degrees, masters or PhDs, and he's finishing up saying, is it necessary?
I just wonder what decision what made you guys choose to go to graduate school?
So it made us choose to go to graduate school. I'll start. So so I was the second year undergraduate for biomedical engineering class of 2010. I just didn't think I was ready enough, or I knew enough stuff from Tufts, unfortunately. That wasn't true. The job would have, if I'd got a job, they would have taught me everything. But I think Joanna mentioned it, John mentioned it. When you get a graduate degree, you learn just a little bit different style of communication, a little bit different style of problem solving, and you become more of a leader or manager quicker. You can start to problem solve just slightly differently. You'll really begin to see it with non-engineers. People can identify that there is a problem. They don't know how to solve it. It's really annoying. At least that's people like us. It's really annoying. So that's one thing that I think you get with either just time or a graduate degree. That's what I really see.
I would say do or don't, whatever you like. At the end of the day, like just make sure you're interested in it. Listen, I'm a prime example. Most of the people at my company and my prior company that were at my like equal level are 5 or 6 years younger than me because they didn't do a PhD. So you can financially do the math. It's not a good financial decision, but I always get asked the question, do I regret it? And my answer is no. Like I needed those 5 years to learn things to be able to do my job now, and other people don't, and that's great. But you should decide for yourself, what do you want to get out of a PhD or a master's degree, and talk to people who have done it and see if you're actually going to get that.
I think it also depends on how technical you want your role to be, and what you really envision yourself doing. So I don't need my medical degree to do what I'm doing. My MBA is probably more helpful. If you see yourself more on like a highly technical, like, device design type of role, or, doing something similar to Gary, like working with CRISPR, that kind of thing, it's probably going to be beneficial to have a graduate technical degree, like going further in biomedical engineering or bioengineering, et cetera. If you are going to like a startup or something like that, where you're going to be able to execute using your current knowledge base, then I think it's fine. Or if you're making a slight pivot into something that's like using biomedical engineering knowledge, but applying it to the business context, if you go into consulting or banking or whatever, certainly not necessary. In that case, longer term, you're going to be looking more for an MBA. But certainly if you're going to go to a biomedical engineering startup, something that came out of David Kaplan's lab, I'm sure there's several. If you want to go to one of those companies, you can certainly learn a lot of valuable skills, and you won't really need a biomedical engineering graduate degree. There's obviously value in it, clearly, for the other folks on the panel. If you look at, Theranos is a terrible example in a way, but like there are other dropouts out of Stanford who are going out and starting companies that are not Theranos, that are actually not terrible people. So it really depends on what you're trying to go for. So if you're looking to have like, I think one of the panelists mentioned it earlier, like if you're really trying to be that guy or gal who are inventing new things, it's probably very beneficial to have that PhD. But again, if you're looking for something that's broader, or you just want to work your way up within a business, then not necessary.
Yeah, and I think it also has to do with the life you're planning. So it's not wrong to plan your pace and your school and your job around the kind of life that you want to have in those next 5 years. So if grad schools, it's a different structure of your life, and if you think it's the right time to, I would say that in grad school you really set your own structure and pace of how fast you want to go. You can do everyone will sell you that you can do your PhD in 4 years. I think it's more rare, but you can do your PhD in 4 years, you can do your PhD in 7 years. Depends how fast you want to go, and how fast you can push yourself and your space. You can have 5 years of a very intense job that just takes over your life, and then you can have a more relaxed job after that. And so planning your life for what you want is important too. So grad school can be part of those maneuvers and those steps, if you want it to be.
All right, and I think that's about time. So thank you again to all the panelists for coming, and thank you to everyone who's there on Zoom and in person. And now I believe we have to give the room up. So
well, before y'all go, as I say, I can't speak for the other panelists, but certainly for me, if any of y'all want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, email, whatever, I'm more than happy to be in touch with any of y'all and answer any questions.
And
Yep,
I'm
I
here,
will,
so I'll hang around for a little bit if you want to talk. offline,
Yeah.
so.
Same
And I
here.
will also send out contact information for everyone who's willing after the panel is over.
Yeah, good luck, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the semester.
Yeah, good on you guys for coming.
It's like a post 9 o'clock thing.
No, seriously? How did that happen?